Welcome to our brand new series, Understanding Dopamine. If you've ever wondered what makes you feel happy, motivated, or even curious, you're in the right place. In this series, we'll dive into everything you need to know about dopamine, starting with today's episode on what dopamine is and the science behind it. Let's get started. Alright, let's kick things off with a simple question. What exactly is dopamine? In the simplest term, dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter, which means it's a chemical messenger in your brain. Here's a fun fact. It's often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter because it plays a major role in how we experience pleasure, motivation, and reward. But dopamine isn't just about feeling good. It's also crucial for several other functions in the brain, including regulating movement, learning, and attention. Imagine dopamine as the brain's little helper, ensuring that these processes run smoothly. Dopamine is produced in several areas of the brain, but the primary production happens in the substantia nigra and the ventral tegmental area. These areas are part of the brain's reward system, which is why dopamine is so closely linked to feelings of pleasure and reward. When you do something enjoyable, like eating your favorite food or listening to your favorite music, your brain releases dopamine. This release reinforces the behavior, making you want to do it again. It's like your brain's way of saying, "Hey, that was great. Let's do it again." Since now that we know what dopamine is, let's get a bit scientific and dive into the science behind it. Dopamine is synthesized from the amino acid tyrosine, which is found in many protein-rich foods like chicken, turkey, fish, and dairy products. Once tyrosine enters your brain, it undergoes a series of chemical reactions to become dopamine. The production of dopamine involves several steps. First, tyrosine is converted into another compound called L-dopa. Then, L-dopa is converted into dopamine by an enzyme called dopa decarboxylase. This process takes place in the neurons, or nerve cells, of the brain. Once dopamine is produced, it is stored in small sacs called vesicles within the neurons. When these neurons are activated, dopamine is released into the synapse, the tiny gap between neurons. Here, dopamine binds to receptors on neighboring neurons, transmitting its signal. But what happens to dopamine after it has done its job? It doesn't just hang around. The brain has a mechanism to clear away excess dopamine to keep everything in balance. This process is called reuptake, where dopamine is taken back into the neurons that released it. This ensures that dopamine levels are regulated and prevents overstimulation of the brain's reward pathways. Interestingly, the balance of dopamine is crucial. Too little dopamine can lead to conditions like Parkinson's disease, characterized by motor control issues. On the other hand, too much dopamine is associated with schizophrenia, which can involve hallucinations and delusions. This delicate balance highlights the importance of dopamine in maintaining overall brain health. One fascinating aspect of dopamine is how it affects our behavior. For example, when you set a goal and start working towards it, dopamine is released, providing you with a sense of motivation and drive. This is why achieving goals feels so rewarding and why setting goals can be a powerful tool for maintaining mental health. Dopamine also influences our ability to learn and form memories. When we learn something new, dopamine helps to reinforce the learning by rewarding the brain. This reward helps to solidify the new information, making it easier to recall in the future. Let me share a quick personal story. There was a time when I felt stuck in a rut, lacking motivation and direction. I didn't know it then, but my dopamine levels were likely out of balance. I decided to make some changes, starting with my diet and incorporating more protein-rich foods like chicken and fish, which are high in tyrosine. I also started setting small, achievable goals for myself. Gradually, I began to feel more motivated and energized. Each small goal I accomplished gave me a little boost of dopamine, which kept me going. This experience taught me the importance of understanding how dopamine works and how we can influence it through our lifestyle choices. Another thing that made a huge difference was regular exercise. Physical activity is known to increase dopamine levels in the brain. I started with short walks and gradually built up to more intense workouts. The change was incredible. Not only did I feel physically better, but my mood and motivation improved significantly. That wraps up today's episode on what dopamine is and the science behind it. We've learned how dopamine is produced, its role in the brain, and why it's so important for our overall well-being. But there's so much more to discover. In our next episode, we'll dive into how dopamine affects our emotions and mental health. We'll explore the link between dopamine and conditions like depression, anxiety, and ADHD. I am sure you won't want to miss it. Stay tuned for our next episode. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. And let us know in the comments, what's one activity that always boosts your mood? Until next time, stay curious and keep those dopamine levels high. See you in next episode.